Hey, it's Christine Grace. Welcome back to my channel. Today is another reaction video. Like the video on your way in, let's get straight into it. So this is actually a reaction video that one of you guys have sent me, and I have just realized that it is Karen Strawn, I think is how you pronounce her name. Anyway, I have met Karen over albeit Zoom before when I was working at the Audacity Network, and she's very lovely. She's got a lot of the right ideas, and yeah, I've not seen this video before. It seems quite old, so let's check it out.
Not too long ago, I had it out with a feminist who had come into a male safe space from a feminist blog, just to scoff at the idea of male disposability. She went there and basically said that the entire concept was a myth, that men's lived experiences were completely wrong, and that they were just a bunch of whiners who were complaining over nothing.
Ironic how that's literally what women claim about men.
Yeah. Anyhow, that got me thinking about the concept of male disposability and how that interacts with the feminist movement. Male disposability has been around since the dawn of time. And it's based on one very, very straightforward dynamic. When it comes to the well-being of others, they come first, men come last. This is just the way it has always been. Seats in lifeboats, being rescued from burning buildings, who gets to eat. Really, society places men dead last every time, and society expects men to place themselves dead last every time. Humans have always had a dynamic of women and children first, and that has not changed at all. The 93% workplace death gap has to be evidence of this, if only because there's nobody with any kind of importance or power who's interested in changing it at all. In fact, I remember reading an article in a BC paper not long ago that described the increasing proportion of female injuries on the job as a huge problem. And the insane thing was, the change reflected a decrease in male injuries rather than an increase in female ones. Men's injuries on the job had gone down because the economic downturn had put so many men out of work in the resource sector that there just weren't as many trees or pieces of heavy equipment falling on men as there had been before. And yet, this was framed as a huge problem for women that required immediate action to solve.
I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Men are problem solvers. Women are problem makers. I'm still yet to figure out where exactly this comes from and what exactly its purpose is, or if it is just genuinely some kind of mutation in the female psyche. Women will make absolutely everything men do about them. Men have almost become an accessory to women, and what's really interesting is the whole of feminism, I believe, is a projection of the female psyche. Everything that they claim, and it's the same with any kind of narcissistic type personality disorder, which I believe a lot of modern women have. It's a projection of themselves. In the same way, if a narcissist says, you know, you're cheating on me, the chances are is that they're cheating on you. And it's the same way that women will say, men sexualize us, men see us as nothing but objects, men see us as accessories to them. They see us not as people, but purely what we can bring to their lives, when the reality is that that's exactly how women view men. Women don't see men as people. They see men as accessories to their own life, and men must be in a subservience to women, because women are the people and men are just the arbitrary objects.
It's just crazy.
Men are expected to be a certain way, to behave a certain way, to act a certain way, and all of it, in women's eyes, should be in subservience to women. And quite rightly, as Karen has just said there, society has been built up that way since the dawn of time.
It's like if men aren't dying at work at 20 times the rate women are, we must be doing something wrong as a society. Back when we were still living in caves, that attitude was necessary for human survival. Nature's a really harsh mistress, especially when you think of all the animals that never ever get to die of old age. Things were a lot different for humans through most of our history on this planet than they are now. Life was dangerous, human settlements were small, isolated from each other, and one big disaster that took out a lot of women pretty much meant the end of the entire shebang for that group of people. So really, the level of importance that a human settlement placed on the well-being of women and children reflected almost always how successful that settlement was. And that can be expanded to encompass entire societies. I keep hearing from the feminist camp that femaleness has always really been undervalued by society and that maleness is preferred.
Yeah, it's just so ridiculous because anyone with a brain just knows that isn't true at all.
But I've always contended that it's the exact opposite. The feminine is intrinsically and individually valuable, simply because females are the limiting factor in reproduction of any species. When it comes to producing babies, every woman counts, whereas biologically, one very happy man could probably do the work of hundreds in that regard. So the level of instinctive importance we humans place on the safety and provision of women and their children, it's one of the main reasons why we've been able to be so successful that we've come to really dominate this planet. And while I will concede that this drive to keep women safe from all harm has often resulted in extreme limits being placed on women's mobility, their agency, their power of decision to direct their own lives, all through history.
For good reason, in my opinion, okay? For good reason. When you let women be in control of their lives, you get what we see today, which is extreme narcissism, extreme abuse. The way women talk about men is absolutely vile and absolutely disgusting. We see abuse of the family court systems. We see abuse of the criminal justice systems. We see abuse in all sorts of forms. Women cannot handle power, and when women choose to make their own decisions, they get power hungry and they get power drunk. And it's only chaos from there. Women choose to murder their own children. Women choose to get naked all the time on the internet. Women choose to sexualize themselves and then blame men for being overly sexualized. You know, quite rightly so, that before, you know, in previous societies, women have had their agency and perhaps their freedom, you know, to vote, whatever, you know, taken away in order to preserve themselves. But I think that's because men know women can't look after themselves, because when you give women all the power, you give women all the freedom, what do women do? We destroy ourselves and thus the human race. The birth rates are declining all around the world. And quite funny that in these countries where the birth rates are declining, women have a whole lot of freedom. Women have a whole lot of choice. And what are they choosing? They are choosing death and destruction.
In many cultures, and in many cultures even today, I think it's telling that those cultures tend to be the most backward. When you consider the restrictions placed on women in places like Afghanistan, and then you consider that if we bombed them into the Stone Age, it would be progress, I think you can conclude that the most successful societies had a really, really good balance between allowing women freedom and the ability to choose.
I completely agree with what she's saying. You know, I don't want it to get mistaken that what I'm saying is that we should be like countries like Afghanistan and Muslim countries. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that we reached a good point of progression. And I think things, by the looks of the data, were going pretty well until when women get the power. So it's like there's a difference between giving women freedom and giving women power. There's a difference in the same way in a marriage. You know, a woman is submissive to a man. That doesn't mean that she has no say whatsoever and she has no autonomy over her life and the family's life. It just means that the man has the final decision. Society was kind of like that. You know, a lot of Western societies, you know, progressed pretty far, and women had freedom. They had freedom to give input. You know, they had freedom to, you know, choose how they want to live their lives, but they didn't necessarily have power. At the end of the day, a man's decision was still the final decision. At the end of the day, men were typically the decision makers in the home. They were the head of the family unit. And then that shifted and women got given power. And now all of a sudden, men don't have the final say. Women have the final say. And I would argue that since then, perhaps the sort of 1960s, I would say, That's when things have got progressively worse. Then with the introduction of a lot of woke kind of liberal mindsets and the gender ideology, you know, post the millennium, sorry. That's when everything has just kind of descended into complete chaos. And I think that there is a direct correlation there between the behavior of women and the amount of women in powerful positions and the current state of society. But that's just my 2 pence.
And direct their own paths in life, and the need to protect them and provide for them. However, feminists will insist that these kinds of restrictions being placed on women in those kinds of societies are the ultimate form of objectification. You lock up your possessions to make sure that they will never be lost or stolen or harmed. Honestly, if I were a guy on a battlefield, I might appreciate being objectified in that way. I think if I was going to be an object, I'd rather be a sexual one or somebody's prized possession than an object that can simply be thrown in the trash or smashed into pieces in the service of somebody else's purpose.
Honestly, everyone is objectified, men and women, and it is so much better and so much more privileged to be the object of a woman than to be the object of a man.
Feminists also have a very simplistic idea that our willingness to absolve women of their crimes, slap them on the wrist, spare them punishment, it comes
and it still happens today
from a deep disrespect society has for women's personhood, not seeing them as full human beings capable of looking after themselves, that we see them as children who don't know any better. And yeah, well, there are parallels there in our desire to protect both women and children from not only their own poor decisions, but the full consequences of their shitty behavior. It's really not as simple as they try to make it out to be. I mean, seriously, even today in 2011, we fully expect that if it comes down to a man and a woman in a burning building and you can only save one, the expectation is that you choose the woman every single time. So honestly, whose humanity are we placing above whose here? We're not talking about going to work. We're not talking about getting an education. We're not talking about having the freedom to decide what you want to be in life. And we're not talking about getting to take Taekwondo. We're talking seats in lifeboats here. The person in the lifeboat is going to survive no matter how capable or incapable they are of managing their own life. And the person going down with the ship is going to die no matter how independent, self-sufficient, and awesome he is. That's the equation. One life more valuable than another. And the woman wins every time.
Yep.
So honestly, is there any argument anywhere that women's humanity has always been held in higher regard by society than men's? To be important to society, a woman merely has to be. A man has to do in order for his life to have any meaning to anyone other than himself. I think it was Man-Woman Myth who said our society reduces men from human beings to human doings.
Yeah. Wow, that is powerful.
And I really think that's an apt analogy. We measure a man's worthiness to wear the title of man, and therefore the title of human, through how useful he is, either to society or to women. And one of the most useful things a man can do, even now in the eyes of society, is to put women and children before himself. Mm-hmm. And while I think there's plenty of argument that this attitude is at least partly innate, the way most survival traits are, even collective ones, if it starts in the chromosomes, we really do everything that we can as a society to reinforce this dynamic. Studies have shown that even though baby boys tend to cry and fuss more than baby girls, parents are quicker to attend to or console a baby girl than they are a baby boy. Even just the level of acceptance of infant male circumcision in our culture, when female genital mutilation was banned pretty much the first afternoon we all heard it existed, it really says a lot about the differing expectations we have for males and females. I mean, speaking as a mother, the last thing I would have ever wanted was to hear my child cry, especially when they're at an age when they're completely helpless, completely at the mercy of outside forces, and utterly dependent on the adults in their lives for every last thing. And yet, even knowing how painful that cut is, We expect baby boys, only days old for fuck's sake, to just suck that up. And just think about what even these very first interactions and experiences.
That is a very good point, which I've not heard before. The point of genital mutilation, and circumcision is literally that. But yet female genital mutilation, is like seen as absolutely abhorrent, disgusting, vile, which it is. But so is circumcision. They even have different names, female genital mutilation and then circumcision, make it sound like some kind of procedure. It's not as bad. I've not heard that before. That is really interesting.
These differences in how we nurture our babies, depending on what gender they are, what this teaches them. What do we teach baby girls when we attend to their crying so quickly? We teach them to ask for help because their needs are important. We teach them to let us know when they're afraid or in pain because it's important for us to know when they're sick or in danger or hurt, so we can do something about it. We teach them that when they're sad or lonely, to summon comfort, and comfort will be there. We teach them that they're important. Their needs and well-being, both emotional and physical, are important just because. And what are we teaching baby boys when we leave them to cry? We teach them there's not much point in seeking help because it will be grudgingly given, if at all. We teach them that they should become self-contained in their ability to deal with emotions like fear, helplessness, loneliness, sadness, pain, distress. We teach them stoicism. We teach them to suck it up. We teach them that their fear and their pain are things that are best ignored. We teach them that their emotional and physical well-being are just not as important as other things. I mean, given all of that, is it any wonder it's like pulling teeth to get a man to go to the doctor when he's sick? What we're teaching that baby boy is all the things a man needs to know and feel and believe about himself if he's going to stand in front of a cabin with a rifle while his wife and kids hide inside. We're preparing him for the day he has to fix a bayonet to a rifle and charge a hill under enemy fire. And we're preparing him to make a decision to resign himself to an icy fate while women and children escape in the lifeboats. We are really teaching him to internalize his own disposability. And baby girls, by attending to her crying so quickly, by letting her know she's inherently important to us, we're preparing her for the day she has to think of her own safety first, even if it means the man she loves is left standing alone with a rifle in front of a cabin. We're preparing her to take that seat in the lifeboat. We're training her to not allow guilt or empathy or acknowledgement of a man's humanity or any sense that he might just maybe deserve it more to convince her to give her seat to him. Because for millennia, the human species absolutely depended on her feeling 100% entitled to that seat. And that brings me to feminism. The patriarchy smashers, those righteous avengers of equality, dogged dismantlers of every single gender role. What exactly is feminism doing to dismantle this traditional role of the disposable male? Feminism's greatest victories have only reinforced in everyone that society still owes women provision, protection, help, and support just because they're women. In its collective dismissal and abandonment of male victims of domestic violence, it only reinforces in men that it's pointless for them to ask for help because men's needs are of no relevance, and their fear and pain don't mean anything to anyone. Feminism teaches us to put women's needs at the forefront of every single issue, political or social, whether that issue is domestic violence law, sexual assault law, institutional sexism, social safety net, education funding, homeless shelters, government funding for shovel-ready jobs that didn't stay shovel-ready once feminists got wind of them. Everywhere you look. Everywhere you look.
And I think what's really interesting is the fact that I always ask this question, what is feminism actually aiming for? Because it's for the seat on the lifeboat, if that's what it's for. We have that. And this is why I keep saying again and again and again that women don't know what they want, especially feminists. They have no idea what they want because they don't realize they're fighting for what they already have, but they're just fighting to do both. Women have a problem with duality. They don't understand that you can't be on the lifeboat at the same time as drowning on the ship. You can't be in safety whilst at the same time heroically being in danger. It doesn't make any sense. The whole concept of feminism is fundamentally flawed. It makes zero sense. So I don't understand what the goal is. And this is why I the only conclusion I can come to is that it's suicidal. They want death and destruction. They want the end of humanity. You know, it's when you break it down to these kind of fundamentals that you can understand the thinking of the likes of people like Schopenhauer. You can understand why there are certain people that believe women are inherently evil, or at least have become evil. And it's because it seems that when women have come together in groups such as feminism, they literally just want the destruction of not only men, but themselves. Because either they realize or they don't that the destruction of men is going to lead to the destruction of themselves and the destruction of the human race as a whole. They don't actually know what they want, because when they tell you what they want, you simply show them how they already have it, especially today in 2025. What rights do men have that women don't? They have everything they want. But they want more. They want more and more and more and more. And they come up with these things. They come up with these unattainable, unrealistic, never going to happen scenarios. Like, we want to stop being sexualized, but then they continue to sexualize themselves. They don't know what they want, and they are simply in, this kind of inferno of chaos, and they are just headed for pure destruction. And my question is, to what end?
There are feminists pushing their way to the front of the line, demanding women's fair share of all of the goodies, the good stuff, the loot, the booty, the cookies. Even if women don't need it, even if women don't deserve it, and even if somebody else needs it and deserves it more. And they get it because we give it to them. Feminism has done nothing but exploit this dynamic of the expectation on men to put everybody else before themselves, especially women. Women's safety and support, women's well-being, and women's emotional needs always come first. This is the most stunning piece of society-wide manipulative psychology I think I have ever come across. Feminism has been on the down low with old-school chivalry right from the start, and they might seem like strange bedfellows for sure, but they're not, because both concepts are built on a firm foundation of female self-interest. We made our way as humans through a really harsh history, and we became the dominant force on this planet, and one of the reasons we were so successful is because we have consistently put women's basic needs first, their need for safety, support, and provision. It was in humanity's best interest for women to be essentially self-interested, and for men to be essentially self-sacrificing. But we don't need that dynamic anymore. I mean, our species is in no danger of extinction. I mean, we're 7 billion people clogging up the works here. What's the worst that could happen if we all just collectively decided that men were no more disposable than women, and women were no more valuable than men? In fact, the greatest danger I see to us right now is that in our desperation to bend over and give women everything they want and everything that they say they need, we've unbalanced society to the point where we're just in danger of seriously toppling over.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just a path to the destruction. There is no attainable goal. There is no light at the end of that tunnel. It is simply the road to hell.
And really, the only difference I see between the traditional role and the new one for men with respect to disposability is that maleness, manhood, it used to be celebrated, it used to be admired, and it used to be rewarded because it was really fucking necessary.
And now it is just completely demonized, Boisterousness is considered bad behavior at school. Masculinity, we now have that term, toxic masculinity. This video was made in 2011, guys, and everything she's saying is more and more true today. It's getting worse. Everything is getting worse. Nothing is getting better. And this is why I make these kind of videos, because what are we to do with this? It's only getting worse. It's constantly getting worse. And this is why, you know, when I react to people like Shoe on Head, who I love, by the way, I absolutely love her content, but she has this kind of very nuanced middle ground, which I totally get because I've been there myself. But I've come to these realizations, you know, the issues that Karen is speaking to, which is, okay, yeah, men and women have their flaws, and both men and women's flaws need to be addressed. But the flaws surrounding women and how we treat men as disposable is so vast that it's going to lead us to destruction if we don't address it. There does need to be more shaming of women. There does need to be, you know, women need to be pulled down off of their high horse. Because it's going to destroy us. And it's in women's best interest not to be there anymore. Because it's going to destroy us.
And because the personal cost of it to individual men was so incredibly high. But now we still expect men to put women first, and we still expect society to put women first, and we still expect men to not complain about coming in dead last every damn time. But men don't even get our admiration anymore. All they get in return is to hear about what assholes they are.
Yeah.
Is it any wonder they're starting to get pissed off?
That was brilliant. And it is to no surprise that this video got 1.8 million views, and there are still people watching it today, just as I am myself. I think she's absolutely spot on. It is a real problem that we are facing, and as I just said, it is just getting worse. It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. There are, obviously, of course, with more and more people on the planet, more and more women who are realizing and waking up to this and trying to get through to other women, but it's not enough. And because of how disposable women view men, when men are pissed off and men are telling women, hey, look, we're pissed off, like something's going wrong here and this isn't working, women aren't listening. Because there's that dynamic, that psychology of women viewing men as disposable. You're objects, you're nothing to us, you're disposable men, you know, go get killed off at war. It's just nothing's going in. This is why I think it's so important to learn from people like Karen, from other women, older women as well, trying to tell the younger women, you are headed down a bad path. We are headed to a bad spot here. It's women that are going to get through to other women, because women don't value men. They don't rate men whatsoever, so they're not going to listen to a man at all, no matter how much you try and get through to her. But they might listen to a woman. But the only problem is the fact that, you know, the kind of collectiveness of women, you know, they will ostracize one woman who's different from the rest. So I feel like-minded women, like Karen, like myself, Shoe, with a little bit of work, I feel like maybe. But I just, at the moment, there's too many feminists to too many sane thinking women. So it really does scare me, because it's so hard to formulate a way that we can tackle this. But we've just got to keep going. We've just got to keep trying. We've just got to keep highlighting the issue that is going on with women. We've just got to keep telling women, like, you are headed down a really, really bad path here. And just hope that some of them realize just how insidious the path that they're on really is. Whether they will or not, out of my control. But I can promise you that damn well I'm going to keep trying. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comment section below? As always, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up on your way out, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to make sure that you keep up to date with all of my videos. And if you'd like to reach out to me, you can do so on my various social media platforms, or send me an email if you've got a video you think would be good for me to react to on the channel. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by clicking the link in the description at buymeacoffee.com. Every single donation means so much to me, and I'm forever grateful to all of you. And on that note, I will see you very soon in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.